Maurice, Count of Saxony, October 28, 1696, November 20, 1750, was a Franco-Saxon soldier in French service who became a marshal and later also Marshal General of France. Childhood: Maurice was born at Goslar, an illegitimate son of Augustus II the Strong, King of Poland and Elector of Saxony, and the Countess Maria Aurora of Königsmark. He was the first of 8 extramarital children whom August acknowledged, although as many as 354 are claimed by sources, including Wilhelmine of Bayreuth, to have existed. In 1698, the Countess sent him to his father in Warsaw. August had been elected King of Poland in the previous year, but the unsettled condition of the country obliged Maurice to spend the greater part of his youth outside its borders. This separation from his father made him independent and had an important effect on his future career. Military career: at the age of 12, Maurice served in the army of Prince Eugene of Savoy, at the sieges of Tournai and Mons and at the Battle of Malplaquet. A proposal at the end of the campaign to send him to a Jesuit college in Brussels was dropped due to the protests of his mother. Upon his return to the camp of the Allies at the beginning of 1710, Maurice displayed a courage so impetuous that Prince Eugene admonished him to not confuse rashness with valor. He next served under Peter the Great against the Swedes. In 1711, August formally recognized him and Maurice was granted the rank of Count. He then accompanied his father to Pomerania, and in 1712 he took part in the siege of Stralsund. At the age of 17 in 1713 he commanded his own regiment. In manhood, Maurice bore a strong resemblance to his father, both physically and in character. His grasp was so powerful that he could bend a horseshoe with his hand, and even at the end of his life, his energy and endurance were scarcely affected by the illnesses his many excesses had caused. On March 12, 1714, a marriage was arranged between him and one of the richest of his father's subjects, Countess Johanna Victoria Tugendrich von Loben, but he dissipated her fortune so rapidly that he was soon heavily in debt. The next year, January 21, 1715, Johanna gave birth to a son, called August Adolf after his grandfather. The child only lived a few hours. Since Maurice had also given her more serious grounds of complaint against him, he consented to an annulment of the marriage on March 21, 1721. After serving in a campaign against the Ottoman Empire in 1717, he went to Paris to study mathematics, and in 1720 obtained a commission as Maréchal de Camp. In 1725, he entered negotiations for election as Duke of Curland, at the insistence of the Duchess Anna Ivanovna, who offered him her hand. He was chosen duke in 1726, but declined marriage with the Duchess. He soon found it impossible to resist her opposition to his claims, but with the assistance of £30,000 lent him by the French actress Adrienne Lecouvreur, he raised a force by which he maintained his authority till 1727, when he withdrew and took up residence in Paris. Lecouvreur was to die shortly afterwards, poisoned by her rival, Maria Carolina Sobieska, Duchess of Bouillon. At the outbreak of the War of the Polish Succession, Saxe served under Marshal the Duke of Berwick, and for a brilliant exploit at the siege of Philipsburg he was named lieutenant general. In the War of the Austrian Succession he took command of an army division sent to invade Austria in 1741. And on November 19, 1741, surprised Prague during the night, and seized it before the garrison was aware of the presence of an enemy, a coup de main which made him famous throughout Europe. He thus repeated the exploit of 1648 of his maternal great-grandfather, Hans Christoph von Königsmark. After capturing the fortress of Eger, Kep, on April 19, 1742, he received a leave of absence, and went to Russia to push his claims for the Duchy of Curland, but returned to his command after getting nowhere. Saxe's exploits were the sole redeeming feature in an unsuccessful campaign, and on March 26, 1743, his merits were rewarded by promotion to Marshal of France. He had been given only 50,000 men to defend against an enemy army twice as large. From this time on, he became one of the great generals of the age. In 1744, he was chosen to command the 10,000 men of the French invasion of Britain on behalf of the Old Pretender, which assembled at Dunkirk but did not proceed more than a few miles out of harbor before being wrecked by disastrous storms. After its termination, he received an independent command in the Netherlands, and by skillful maneuvering succeeded in continually harassing the superior forces of the enemy without risking a decisive battle. In the following year, Saxe with 65,000 men besieged Tournai and inflicted a severe defeat on the army of the Duke of Cumberland at the Battle of Fontenoy, an encounter determined entirely by his constancy and cool leadership. For, during the battle, he was unable to sit on horseback due to edema, and was carried about in a wicker chariot. In recognition of his brilliant achievement, King Louis XV of France conferred on him the Chateau De Chambord for life, and in April 1746, he was naturalized as a French subject. Until the end of the war, he continued to command in the Netherlands, always with success. Besides Fontenoy he added Droques, 1746, and La Feltorval, 1747, to the list of French victories. He led the French force which captured Brussels, and it was under his orders that Marshal Lowendael captured Bergen-op-Zoom. He himself won the last success of the war in capturing Maastricht in 1748. In 1747 the title once held by Turenne and Villars, Marshal General of the King's camps and armies, was revived for him. But on November 20, 1750 he died at the Chateau de Chambord of a putrid fever. During the last years of his life, Maurice had an affair with a French lady, Marie Genevieve Renta, who at that time was only 18 years old. In 1748 she gave birth to a daughter, the last of Maurice's several illegitimate children. She was called Maria Aurora, in French, Marie Aurore, after her grandmother. She bore the surname de la Rivière until 1766, when the Parliament of Paris formally recognized her parentage and she could assume the surname of von Saxen or de Saxe. Marie Aurore married firstly in 1766 with Antoine, Comte d'Horn, 1722–1767, an alleged illegitimate son of Louis XV of France. By her second marriage with Louis-Claude Dupin de Francueil, in 1777, she was the grandmother of Amandine Lucille or Dupin, who later became famous as the writer George Sand. Maria Aurore died on December 25, 1821, when her granddaughter George Sand was 17. Sand included details of her grandmother's parentage in her memoirs.